And so I don't think that we as a community, when we demand certain services, can categorically say, no, you can't charge us these fees. So with that in mind, I mean, what's your counter proposal other than to say, no, you can't charge this to me?
Well,
I think with the energy audits, that's got to be a third-party verification.
But it used to be,
It's changed, the codes have changed.
the code requires it to be third. The UBC doesn't require it to be a third, but they can't legislate that. It's an internal adoption, the city has to adopt it internally.
Michael, do you want to comment?
Yes,
What's that? Yeah.
my name is Michael Manette. I'm the president of the Oak Cliff Conservation League, and we were involved in that discussion about those fees. And part of what Scott was talking about earlier with the success of the Bishop Arts District is that that is a conservation district, and there were tax monies available to the people in that district because those buildings are all in the National Registry, and so there are federal and city credits that were available to those buildings. So that's part of their success as well. But there's a cultural component to a vibrant city having successful conservation districts and historic districts, and if we lose those, we lose something as a city. We lose part of our heart, and we lose part of our identity. And there are people that move to places like this that seek out places like what we have and what we offer, and they make us more valuable.
Well, I chose to live in a community like this intentionally for a lot of those reasons. I'm just saying.
But
that
you have
to pay
expenses
for a
that
service.
you have expenses that you incur that a person up north doesn't have with your house that's fallen down, that's in a historic or conservation district. People over here, we pay our dues. We pay them to a lot of people to fix these houses up, and we offer. I think that we offer an incredible value to the city that other parts of the city don't offer because we sustain we sustain our history. We're the keepers of our history, and I think that makes us. I think that there's a cultural component that I think the general fund should fund where it comes to our history and to conserving our buildings, is the point I was trying to make.
I'd also say there's also an administrative issue here, of how we got in this position. Because the building inspection used to be running just on their own fees. And the fees they charge, they come in, that would be their staff. And so then, there's a big buildup, the economy was doing really good, then everything fell apart. And so that's why they had to lay everyone off. So you have these huge peaks and valleys. So you do need to even it out with some supply in the general fund, because right now, everything is so stacked up to get a fee. It's taking so long that they can't issue them, so they can't collect. So it's kind of like you have to prime the pump, it can never get restarted. Once the economy collapsed and it went down to almost zero permits being filed, then they have to lay everyone off. And then you really can't get things going. So it needs to be a system for people, because we want to get businesses open. We certainly do, and we want people to be able to renovate their homes. That doesn't depend on these peaks and valleys either. And so that's why we support looking for alternatives than just what's there right now.
I thought that Dave Newman voted against that because he called, I sent him an email asking him to vote against it, and he called my home and left me a message telling me that he voted against it.
That's because the votes were already there. There were already 8 people on there, so he just jumped on board. Talking to people in Winnetka Heights and the other organizations, he was fully ready to increase the fees for certificates of appropriateness. He just jumped on since they had 8.
What are these fees based on? Is it acreage or?
No, based on what you want to do. If you want to, I think Michael would probably know.
The proposal was to add a 10% surcharge onto all the permits that you pull at your house, based on the value of the work, and to also charge a flat fee for a certificate of appropriateness that is not charged now. But you to also realize that what are you getting for your money, because there were 8 people that did that job before, and now there's 1.
Yeah.
And that's why East Kessler
I was
and
just
Stevens
wondering what it
Parks,
is.
their things sit on the table now for years. They can't get their
Our
districts.
conservation district in Stevens Park, we're at year 7 waiting for it. We started it in 2004. I remember working on it when I was president of the neighborhood in 2005. And we're just now getting around to holding the city's just now getting around to holding meetings about it. It's just taken far too long.
That was brought up at the debates. Does the city council person have any ability or whatever to help facilitate these happening more quickly or not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can certainly make it a priority to get them together.
Because there were like 2 districts that were mentioned at the debates that have been trying to get it for a long time and hadn't.
Cedar Park is the other one.
Okay.
And they've been
So the
trying-
city council person could help facilitate that.
He is, Councilman Newman, when it became his own Kessler, when he voted against it, at the time he wasn't on the council, but as a homeowner, he voted against that conservation district. But I'm very much in support of conservation districts and preserving our character over here.
I wanted to go back to what you mentioned before about the fracking and that. I personally just actually watched, there's a documentary out there called Gasland. Maybe some of you have seen that. Hearing about what's been happening and then understanding that a lot of this actually started where we live, and pretty much mostly in Fort Worth. I know it's been happening. But maybe can you just go into, for those who don't know about that, and some of the particular issues when it comes to the water, where there's the pollutants now are seeping into the water. Can you talk a little bit more about that and in terms of what the documentary went into?
Yeah, or just generally, what's applicable to us is hydraulic fracking is, there's gas trapped in shale, the Barnett Shale. And it wasn't until the 1990s that it was economically viable to extract gas from shale. 2 techniques were developed and perfected in the 90s. One being horizontal drilling, where you could drill essentially horizontally across through a formation. And the other technique was they developed new fracking fluids that did 2 things. One, within shale, once a high pressure wave went in and went out, they developed proppants, which are certain little particles that can keep the holes open. The other one is they found chemical combinations that can essentially persuade the gas to leave the shale, because it's like cement down there. It absolutely does not want to give up the gas inside. So you have to create the right permeability as well as the porosity. And so these chemicals that go in, it's not only salt water, but they add various benzene derivatives, ethyl alcohol derivatives, and they put them down when they're in high pressure. So the risk for this area is always surface spillage. What if some spills on the surface is one big issue. Because oftentimes the oil and the gas companies want to drill someplace close to a water source where they can acquire a lot of water. Because it takes millions of gallons to frack a well. And so that's why they've probably chosen to select the Mutual Pool Lake near Mountain Creek Lake so they can eventually purchase the water. So the issue is what chemical, right now it's unregulated by the Federal Clean Air and Water Act, what chemicals can and cannot go into fracking fluids. It's famously called the Halliburton loophole. And so that's an issue 1, that's unregulated. Issue 2 that's unregulated is right now the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality for the state of Texas doesn't have regulations in place, sufficient ones, for the transport of this fluid or for its disposal. Because once you use it, this fracking fluid can't touch other water. It ruins whoever water it touches. The water can never be made
The
right.
water can't go back to Jake.
That's right, you can't put it back in.
Once you use it.
Contaminated. So you actually have to transport it to an empty vacant well somewhere and pump it back in the ground over there to store it. So there's a whole bunch of environmental decisions that have to be made right now. And that's why right now the EPA has launched a study to determine what are best practices. What chemicals and what amounts should you be allowed to use in fracking fluid?
Well, what about water conservation?
That's a big issue too, especially now in Dallas and Metroplex with our growth, is because we can't live without water, we can't live without air. So how much of it do you want to, as a community, give to fracking and other uses? They're huge issues.
So about this, these all seem like federal issues. Like what do you suppose the city council can do other than just approve or deny this project?
Well, we put a moratorium in place.
Okay.
And we say this needs to be worked out at the federal and state level. The rules we have now are so antiquated. We all saw in the 2000s with the Barnett Shale, a gold rush on it. There's more and more drilling. And in that time period, an enormous amount of data was collected, and that needs to be reviewed, and it needs to be determined what are the best practices to move forward. And that's why we need a moratorium right now, because we don't have adequate federal, we don't have an adequate state regulation. I mean, how close should this be to residents? Is it fine just to be 600 feet away? It's pretty close.
And on the video, they showed the holding tanks spewing some kind of gaseous, something out. And I thought that we're 500 feet away at least or more, I think there was a school. And this is happening in Fort Worth, in areas of Fort Worth. And it also mentioned a little town called Dish, Texas, that I think has completely been polluted with all of the groundwater. They're having, people are having truck groundwater in, and it just doesn't seem like, I mean, all of us, I know I go to Joepole Lake, I know, you know, Mount View Lake is not a recreational lake, but Joepole Lake is, but any lake in around our area is pretty valuable, so.
Well, and the groundwater too.
Yeah, and the
The
groundwater.
groundwater's polluted and
Especially
we're kind of doomed.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I remember looking at this site a while ago, and I thought it was just a fantasy a politician elsewhere came up with, and not something that somebody who has to look at what the profitability is of natural gas is and where the geologists say it's located came up with. Because, I don't know, I have clients with interest further and further going west, and where they located this, it seemed like it was based on a fantasy to make people think they were bringing in revenues, people who would be more focused on that, and that it wasn't something that Chesapeake or somebody who could put the dollars into it came up with. I don't know, that was my estimation of it now, which is, I have all the same concerns about fracking. You don't want that stuff getting around. But do you have any background on the project from that perspective of who's putting these plans in place? Is it Chesapeake in conjunction with?
It's XTO, a wholly owned
Okay,
subsidiary.
XTO. Okay. And so they're looking at this, and you know where they're at as far as
Yeah, right now,
progress?
they have they have to drill by a certain date structural, or they lose the rights.
Okay, so they've got kind of like an option on the mineral rights there. Who do they have to pay?
The city of Dallas.
They have to pay the city of Dallas to start taking it out of the ground?
And the city of Dallas will get a certain percentage. And we all know natural gas prices are still very low, even though oil's risen up. Natural gas prices are still under $4 per 1,000 cubic feet. It's not very much right now with natural gas.
The futures were $8 like 15 months ago.
That's right. Even before that, during the going up, it got up to $12, $13.
Yeah, it's about 13. I
So-
was thinking about it.
So how, as a councilman, would you be to promote sustainable living, energy conservation?
The biggest challenge actually facing the city of Dallas came out with the census data, which goes to making us a livable city. If you looked at the census data, the state of Texas population increased by over 20%. Dallas County population increased by over 6%. But inside the city of Dallas, the population increased by less than 1%. In the last 10 years, we essentially have the same number of people living in the city of Dallas. And what that's showing is with this huge population increase in Texas is people aren't choosing to live in the city of Dallas. We have to make livability a priority. And that's going to be especially to our economic development model and our housing model and our transportation model we have in place right now are benefiting the suburbs. They're not benefiting the city of Dallas. And we need to make policies that benefit the city of Dallas a priority. Because if we ever start having a declining population, it'll just spiral out of control. Because you're still going to have all this aging infrastructure that's going to need tax dollars to maintain it, and you're going to have fewer people paying those tax dollars, so they'll have to pay more.